Have you heard about the word domicile? I believe all of you that there is a word called domicile. Do you all know that what does domicile mean? I think you know that domicile means staying somewhere. But staying in what sense? How long that staying should continue? Now, supposing if you have come to Delhi for the preparation of UPSC and you are staying there for 1 to 3 years, do you obtain a domicile of Delhi? So, when do you get a domicile? So, you are coming from a state and then you are in Delhi, you have rented out a place, you are studying, you are preparing, you are even appearing your exam in Delhi, but does it mean that you have become domicile, you have got domicile of Delhi, or your domicile remains the state where from you are coming? So, if Delhi becomes domicile, then why Delhi becomes the domicile? And if your native state becomes domicile, then why your native state still continues to be your domicile? Why is it? Have you given a thought on this? Today, my small presentation, in this video, will give you some clarity, and this clarity is important for your GS2 polity somewhere. So, one thing you must know, that no person on this earth can be without a domicile. Every human being should have a domicile. That domicile can be a country, that is the first. Within the country, that domicile can be a federal unit, can be a provincial territory. The Supreme Court recently, you see that on which day, 2 days before, or 3 days before, on 16th, it has given an order. What is that order? Meanwhile, Haryana government issued an order, where it says that 70% of the jobs, including the private sector jobs, should be reserved for the people from Haryana. Now, on that, the Punjab and Haryana High Court, you know that Punjab and Haryana High Court is one, and that is located in Chandigarh, that has given an order saying that no, because 70% reservation is not allowed in the country. So, therefore, the Haryana and Punjab High Court located in Chandigarh has given a stay. On 16th of this February, 3 days before, Supreme Court has vacated that stay. What does it mean? That means right now, until a new decision comes, the Haryana government's order that 70% jobs both in public and private sector will be reserved for the local people or the people from Haryana, that continues. And what the Supreme Court says, because if it continues, then can be a problem. Supreme Court says that within 4 weeks, the High Court of Punjab and Haryana should give a proper order on this, because the earlier order was ad hoc, incomplete. Until that time, Haryana government will not be able to force, will not be able to coerce the private sectors located within the territory of Haryana state to make these order compulsorily follow. That means Supreme Court has made a balance between these two. The principle is that Supreme Court will not go into clash, but it will try to see that any confrontational issue can be minimized or can be balanced. So, this way, this Supreme Court has given an order, and because of this, it has become a very, very important issue. Now, the country, what is that domicile? Let me briefly look into that. The country that a person treats as his or her permanent home, Okay. So a person, when he thinks that this is my permanent home, that means what I was telling, when you are coming and staying in Delhi, you are not considering Delhi as your permanent home. You are thinking that I am there for temporary purposes. Your permanent home remains. So in your form you will see that always there is a column, your temporary address and your permanent address. So that permanent address becomes your domicile, or lives in or has substantial connection with it. Now when you fill the form, you understand that why there is always a temporary address and permanent address, because permanent address denotes your domicile status. Domicile is not mere residence but intention to permanently live in a place. So domicile is not related to your residence. Understand it. Now I may not have a house here, but I may be in a rented house or maybe a government quarter, but still I can have domicile here. Okay. So and I have a house, but I am not staying here regularly, therefore I cannot have domicile here. So domicile is not related to your house or where your property is located. That is not the criteria actually. Domicile is your intention to stay permanently in which place. If it is Delhi, then Delhi is domicile. If it is some other place, then that place is your domicile. A place where one makes permanent home or residence. Now how do you indicate that I want this place to be my permanent home or residence? That can be done by enrolling yourself in the voter list, by getting your children educated here, by staying here for a longer time. You can have even all the purposes you are using this address for a longer time. So then you are becoming the permanent residence of this place, even if you don't have a house. This is not related to physical existence of a house. Fine. Be clear about it. This is not related to physical existence of your house or property in Delhi or in another place. That is not the criteria here. Even a rented house or an official accommodation will do to establish your domicile status. If a person temporarily migrates elsewhere for job, then place of origin continues to be domicile. Now somebody has gone maybe even abroad, okay, he has not sacrificed his domicile status, or somebody has come to Delhi from some other places, he has not sacrificed his domicile status. He is only here for the purpose of job, but for all other purpose his permanent place remains his native place. So that is the domicile. Fine. So that permanent character of your place where you want to be, that is your final domicile. And who bears the evidence of it? We'll talk about it little later. So this permanently in the place, so somewhere this should be clear that I want to be here permanently. Now what about the domicile in India? Now this is what I am saying, it is generally applicable anywhere in the world, and India is no different. Now regarding domicile in India, any person after staying for a year in the country can declare by writing the desire for domicile. So if a foreigner stays in Delhi for any purposes and after staying there for 1 year continuously, he can then claim that he can then intend to become or to get the domicile status of India, wherever it may be. So this is 1 year stay is very, very essential to get domicile status in India. Now next questions come. Now I believe you are also thinking that can I have domicile in 2 states? No, you cannot. Until you get new domicile, your old domicile continues. Okay, the moment you get new domicile, then old domicile automatically discontinues. So therefore you cannot have 2 domiciles at the same time, illegally. But illegally it's a different thing, but legally it cannot be. No person can have more than 1 domicile. An existing domicile continues unless a new domicile is acquired. So until I am getting a domicile of Delhi, then the state from where I am coming or the country from where I am coming to Delhi, so that continues. Fine. So these part is to be very, very clear. Domicile denotes an individual's connection with the territorial system. Now what does it mean? It means you are connected to the territorial system. So you are connected to the Haryana state, you are connected to the Punjab state, you are connected to Delhi, NCR state. So you are connected to that territorial state which is defined by law as a territorial limit of a state. So this is what is your domicile status. So that means once I get domicile of Delhi, then whatever a person of Delhi should enjoy as his right, as his privilege, as his freedom, as his liberty, all should come to me also. Fine. So therefore I can have a voter list, I can be an applicant for anything, I can be considered as local. Fine. So this is what status I get. Now what kind of domicile can be there? One, the most popular, most well accepted domicile status is domicile by birth. So the birth certificate is your first domicile status. So birth certificate, that is father's or father's birthplace. Supposing, just imagine that somebody is in Delhi, okay, and his wife goes to the native state, before the delivery of the child, and the child is delivered there. So therefore child obtains automatically or naturally the birth certificate from that state. That doesn't mean that father's domicile is in Delhi while child's domicile is in that native state. No. So child will then automatically become the part of the father's domicile until that child becomes major. And if the child decides that this is my birthplace, so therefore I want to get the domicile back, then he will immediately get it back because his birth certificate bears another state. But otherwise naturalization is that he will acquire the father's domicile status. Secondly, domicile by choice. Relocating to a place other than the place of birth. Okay. Now many places today they migrate from one place to another. Okay. And they go from one place to another and they get settled there. So this is called domicile by choice. So when I am moving from one state to another, I can decide that I will be there for 20 years for my service, then I will come back to my state. So therefore I don't want domicile there. I just want a resident to be a resident there. Other persons thinking, no, I like this place, I like to permanently settle there. So that means one person does not intend to get or acquire domicile status, another person intends to get domicile status. So this is how the difference is. Third, domicile by dependence. So what is domicile by dependence? One, that a girl got married to a person who is in another state, and after marriage he goes to another state, she goes to another state, so then automatically she gets the domicile of the husband. That can be one position. Now, so therefore one person can be born, as I told you earlier, but then she or he becomes goes to father, so then he becomes the father's, acquires father's domicile status. So this is how, which is called domicile by dependence. Okay. This basically takes place because between the parents and children, husband and wife. Okay, those kind of places, situation, this domicile of dependency that is applicable. Fine. The domicile in India, as I was talking earlier, does citizen of India require domicile certificate? Okay, should we carry always a domicile certificate? Actually, we always carry. Okay, how do we carry? With birth certificate, that is a domicile certificate. We carry our voter card, domicile certificate. We carry our 10th pass certificate from which school we have studied, which state it belongs to, 10th or 12th standard certificate. And then if there is a need, if I don't have any certificate, I'm an illiterate person, I have lost my certificate, in that case I will apply to the government, and government will give certain conditions. And once I fulfill that and government is satisfied, then government will give me a domicile certificate. There can be that because of the disaster, because of the calamities, I have lost all the things. So in that case, government will provide those. Okay, this can be even at the international level. When there is a civil war, a group of people have gone to another country as refugee, lost everything. Recently, what has happened in Afghanistan, many people have just entered into the flight and reached another country. So they have nothing. So then in that case, they will apply for the domicile status and government will issue them a certificate. That becomes the domicile certificate. Based on that domicile certificate, then that person can apply for job, can get admitted in the school. So everything can be. So domicile certificate is very much necessary. A company's state of domicile is where now, when a company, an organization is registered, then what is its domicile? Its domicile is where it is registered. So that will be considered as its place of domicile. Indian Succession Act 1925, okay, and their domicile is very, very important thing, because without domicile you cannot make any intestate succession certificate. That means who will inherit your property. In that case, you require a domicile certificate, okay, or a domicile status, writing a will, intestate succession and succession planning. So who will inherit your property, when you are not there, or when you want to bequeath with your property, who will be inheriting it? So in that case, you require definitely a domicile status. That is very important, because you have to write that this is my permanent place, I know residence, so and so permanent, everything you have to write. Domicile denotes a personal connection with a territorial system, which I said you, and domicile or permanent residence certificate, okay, domicile or permanent residence certificate, okay. Either it's a permanent residence certificate, can be a domicile certificate. Now there is a issue for a longer time, that is contesting election. Earlier the MPs, even the prime ministers, they were searching which seat they can contest upon. And somebody is going to Assam, somebody is maybe he is staying in Delhi but going to Assam, or staying in Haryana going to Madras or Mumbai, somewhere to contest an election, because that is a sure seat. In that case, what they were doing earlier, they used to get LPG certificate, they used to get a residence, rented house, I am staying there for a long time, lot of debates were there, how come these leaders are giving false affidavit, all kind of things were there, okay. Now, okay, what happened, that finally it was becoming a very controversial thing, and every party, every leaders were doing, leaders of every party was doing that. Finally in 2003, Parliament passed the amendment to section 3(1) of the People's Representative Act 1951. Okay. So finally Parliament has made an amendment to the People's Representative Act 1951. And what it says, that instead of being an elector of a state or UT, it makes being elector of a parliamentary constituency anywhere in India. Okay. So now a person can contest election from anywhere in India. Okay. He must be an elector, his name must appear in the electoral roll. Okay. And then he can choose his place. So otherwise it was becoming a controversial thing, that where that person, and great leaders were looking for a rented house certificate, is very, very shameful. Okay. So this is how Parliament has tried to rectify this problem. What is the constitutional provision on that? Okay. Now see that, as I told you always, and I tell always, that for any GS2 answer, always try to see that if there is any constitutional provision which will support your answer. Here the Article 16 says equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Okay. Article 16, equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 16(2), no citizen shall, on grounds only on religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth. That means, see, on the basis of place of birth, nobody can be discriminated. That is what Article 16 says. Okay. Now, on the basis of place of birth, nobody can be discriminated, to get an public employment. So now the Haryana, with which I started, where Supreme Court says that 70% reservation for the locals issued by the Haryana government will continue until proper judgment comes from the or order comes from the High Court of Punjab and Haryana. So that means, the place of birth becomes matter. Okay, now this is where the issue goes on. So this is what Supreme Court is trying to resolve in this case. So Article 16 is very clearly saying that on the basis of place of birth, nobody can be discriminated in the country. Article 371D1, Article 371D1, but Article 16 is must. This is regarding the Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so first there was a provision specially made for Andhra Pradesh because Hyderabad Nizam state and then Andhra Pradesh country, Andhra Pradesh state and Hyderabad Nizam's kingdom. So there was an issue on that. So at that time the government given some provisions for the Andhra Pradesh for the local people, but later on when the Public Employment Act came in 1957, that provision which was given in 3371D1 that has been repealed. That is automatically gets nullified, where it says repeals all earlier laws on special provisions. So there was a special provision earlier, but after the 1957 Public Employment Requirement as to Residency Act 1957, all the earlier special provisions have been discontinued or repealed. Now domicile certificate is, domicile certificate is required, but actually we all have a domicile certificate. It varies from state to state. Different state requires different kind of, proof for that. And various government recognize domicile status differently. Okay. Somebody can say that voter identity card enough. Somebody says no, Aadhaar is important. Somebody will say no, a birth certificate is important. So various governments can have, various parameters for that. Now, what are the documents normally considered as domicile proof is identity proof, Aadhaar card, voter ID card, ration card, etc. Then resident proof, electricity bill, water bill, telephone bill, okay, and then copy of the birth certificate, and then proof of the applicant owning a land, then passport size, color photograph along with that, okay. All these things together or separately, individually, can be considered by the different state as the primary proof of domicile status. So following terms are often used to denote domicile status in education and in employment. Very often we see some state, some political party will say son of the soil will get privilege. Some of the political parties or government will say children of the state will get privilege. Original residents will get advantage. These are all actually, promoting domicile status or giving importance to the people who are having domicile status in that particular territorial jurisdiction of the state. Supreme Court, as I said earlier, Supreme Court has already given, again I come back to that. So Supreme Court is really trying to resolve this issue that, whether Article 16, which says that no discrimination on the place of birth, and other side is that son of the soil or the original residents or the children of the state will get privilege. How to strike a balance between these two? One is Article 16, another is the aspirations of the people. So this is where the Supreme Court is dealing with, and that is why Supreme Court has given this judgment on 16th of February 2022. So this is my brief presentation on domicile. I believe you have got some new information, insight on domicile. If you like it, please get back to us with your appreciation. Thank you very much.